posted a couple pictures about this, and I just wanted to kind of go in a little details. There's a little confusion. I had a moment where I jumped into a Discord with New, and I made some comments about something, and somebody was like, "How do we know you're the real you?" And I'm like, because there's only one me. I don't know. How else do you prove that, right? He's like, "Why don't you tweet a picture of a robot chicken?" And of course, he didn't realize, or he'd forgotten at that moment, that Robot Chicken was an actual show on Adult Swim. And I'm like, well, how about I post a picture of my PlayStation 2 that's protected by the devil running Linux? And he goes, done. So I snapped a picture of my PlayStation 2, which I have this warning label sticker that I got, I don't know, 20 some odd years ago, and I put it on the PlayStation ages ago, and it says warning, protected by the devil himself. And I thought it was really funny at the time, and it still kind of makes me laugh, because this PlayStation 2 is one of the original, I waited in line, pre-ordered the PlayStation 2, paid for it in advance kind of thing, then I waited at Babbage's, which I don't even think those stores exist anymore, to pick up my PlayStation 2. So it's one of the original release PlayStation 2s. There it is, right there. PlayStation 2. Protected by the devil himself. Now, this barcode that's up there was probably like 6 years after I got it. Maybe a little later than that. It might have been early 2003. No, might have been 2004. And the DVD and CD laser had a malfunction, and it was actually a known problem with this first generation PlayStation 2s. And it was slapping against the CDs. It couldn't read right. It was so the mechanism was causing it to try to get closer to the disc, both CDs and DVDs, and it was slapping against the disc while the disc was spinning. So it was just carving this hole, this groove into my discs, which kind of annoyed me. It killed my first one of my discs for Final Fantasy VII. It killed like 2 different movies, and it killed a different game than I had. Because I tried it, and it worked. It didn't work on a DVD, and at first I thought it was just the DVD was scratched up and messed up. So I swapped it, and then I was like, "Wait, what's that noise?" I heard it, I'm like, "Oh, that's crazy." And then I put in a CD that wasn't a DVD because it uses a different laser, or a different laser diode. And so I stuck that in there, and it worked great for like 3 days. And then I tried a different movie. I was like, well, maybe it'll work now. And it scratched that one up. I'm like, okay, well, DVD is completely screwed. Put in the CD again and play the game. I think that was Final Fantasy VII. And it started slapping against the Final Fantasy VII disc and just carved a groove. And I was like, well, that's stupid. So I called up Sony's repair team, and I was just like, hi, I got this PlayStation 2. It's exhibiting these problems. And I know it's way out of warranty. I've actually taken it apart like twice, just to try to see if I could figure out what was wrong with it, because it's well out of warranty. He's like, who cares? I'm like, what's it going to cost me to get this fixed? And the guy's like, hold on a sec, I'm going to put you on hold for a little bit, let me see what I can do for you. And he disappeared for like 30 minutes. So I could just set the phone down, and I forgot I was on the phone with the guy. And then he picks up the phone again and goes, hey, here's what we're going to do. You're going to have to ship it to this address, referencing this, this, and this, and it'll get repaired for free and shipped back to you, but you're going to have to pay for shipping to get it there. And I said, okay. So I sent it off. The sticker was already on it, mind you, and the void warranty sticker had already been ripped off and put back on, so it just said void across it. It was like, I'll just leave it there just for kicks. And I was expecting not to see that sticker again. But when I got the PlayStation back, it had it. About that time is when I discovered that Sony had released a Linux kit for the PlayStation 2. And the Linux kit came with this. It's got a DVD full of binaries, and it's got a DVD full of the PlayStation 2 Linux boot runtime. It came with a VGA output that plugs into the regular AV port, and instructions, and a hard drive and a network adapter. So all that stuff came in there. And it came with instructions on how to convert and it came with this too, the HDD utility disk version 1.0 for PlayStation 2. And it came with instructions on how to take a memory card, which is an 8 meg, basically an 8 meg flash card, and turn it into a boot device for the PlayStation. Now, in order to get it to boot into Linux now, you have to put in the DVD, the runtime DVD, and it will boot. It will then come into a boot menu that will be read off of the memory card, and then you can go through and boot the system, boot it into recovery mode, boot it into single user, whatnot, and you just boot it up. So it's kind of running I can only describe it as like Sony got a hold of old school Red Hat Linux kernel version 2.2 and doctored it to operate and function inside a PlayStation with the MIPS processor and the whole nine. You can see it here is the system is the Emotion Engine PS2. It's 392 BOGO MIPS, and it's the R5900 version 2 CPU, which is the Emotion Engine that's inside the PlayStation 2. Otherwise, it doesn't really do anything fancy yet. This is more of just a project of why not. It has a bunch of packages that are in binary form. It's got source packages for those binaries, but it doesn't have any of the libraries that you need to compile any of those source packages, which is like a royal pain in the ass. So, and it might, but there's just hundreds of packages on there, and I have to dig through all of these packages to see if I can get the libraries that are needed to install the libraries, so I can install the C compiler, so I can install. Like right now, it's got SSH. The binary for SSH allows it to remote out with really, really old and bad SSH, but it doesn't have SSHD. You can't run an SSHD server on it. It's got RSH, but like who gives a crap about that these days? So my first order of business is to get it in a state where I can compile and install SSHD, and I'm kind of working on that when I'm not editing videos or attending these crazy events. I've got a whole video, like enough for 5 videos from Dragon Con that I'm sifting through going, okay, do I want to make a video individually about all these different things I saw, or do I want to make one short video? And it's just kind of like a bunch of crazy, it's making those decisions, because you make those decisions early and you decide what kind of music bed you want, and then you can decide how you're going to chop it up. Like if I want to make a whole video on one of the things, like I did a full interview on the Artemis Bridge Simulator. I did an interview with the Murder of Jane Crow, which is the best way we can describe them is they're like a gypsy goth band. They're nifty people. They're friends of mine. I've known them for years. The Artemis Bridge Simulator guy that's on display at Dragon Con, the guy's name is Troy. He's absolutely amazing. He's really awesome. He's got a really nice setup, and it's really fun to watch people come in half inebriated and command this bridge and do the missions and kick some ass. It's a lot of fun to watch. So I've got a lot of footage of that, but it's an hour, 45 minutes of footage to an hour of footage of these people operating the bridge, and it's like watching that whole thing can be entertaining, but it's you have to have the right camera set up, the right angles, the right audio. I've got a lot of different audio clips and video, and I got to consolidate it down to actually just flow with the interview. But then it's okay, do I make it part of the Dragon Con video, or do I make an Artemis Bridge Simulator video? And it's either way, it's a lot of work. It's just, it takes time and energy while I'm in the midst of doing all this other stuff. Which brings me to the next bit of this episode of Qain's World. Here's my workstation setup. I got this is the main workstation with my Xeon workstation here. This is the PlayStation running on this thing. Magic cards and my old GameCube and my Wii and Magic, a bunch of snazzy books. Moving over here, I got my phone. I haven't got that on yet, but it's in the process of doing things. It's my X52. That's an old Thrustmaster flight control system. I've literally had that for almost 25 years. This is a bunch of DDR2 memory that I pulled out of a bunch of old 1950 servers. They're not 1950 like the year, but Dell 1950s, and maybe some 1970s. I think they're Mark 1 and Mark 2s. They're all DDR2. These are the CPUs that came in them. They're more or less kind of just there as relics than anything else. And then you go over here, we got my laptop, and I got a dice and some snazzy-ass routers. This is a keyboard I just did a cleaning on. It's a membrane keyboard, but what I think is interesting about this, let's see if I can get the angle on this just right, is the keys press down at an angle. it's kind of a nifty keyboard. I pulled that apart and put it back together. That's my new chair I just got. It's kind of snazzy. And then in this order of obnoxiousness, I got my new workbench. This is a Dell 2716. Yeah, 2716. The power supply in it is faulty. A couple of the capacitors have a tendency to blow, or you'll have like a fuse that'll blow on it. The fuse is fine, so I've replaced 3 of the 5 capacitors that might be the issue. So we'll see if we can get that thing back up and running. It's the Queen of Pain. I just got this thing installed yesterday. It is a 24-port SMC Tiger switch. It's a gigabit switch with 4 gigabit fiber or SFP ports that can go to fiber or whatnot. That's the 8x10. This thing is amazing, by the way. It is $12 for this giant piece of awesomeness, and it's got nothing on it just yet, but we're getting there. And then we'll come back over here to my cabinetry of awesome. I've got this is an R715. I'm hoping to get another one of these pretty soon. This is an R310. This is a 2950. This thing's a little on the hot side, and I'd like to get rid of it, but it's the only thing I have that can handle the 6 drives here. These, while it says SAS on it, they're actually 2 terabyte SATA drives, and then these down here are 24 1 terabyte drives. I do actually have this thing plugged into this, and it's working fantastic. It's only SATA, well, it's SAS, but it's SAS 3 gig, so it's not too crazy. But it's up and running. This is running. This is running FreeNAS. This is turned off at the moment, but when I get it back online, it's actually running Gen 2, and I'm going to pull all the data off of this and wipe it. I'm going to see what I can do about swapping the drives out for something bigger. These are all 500s. These are 1.5 terabytes. And I maybe just use the chassis for something else and pull the motherboard out. Right now it's an old Opteron. Get this stuff kind of up and running and operational. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. This workbench is awesome because it doubles as a tool drawer thing. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I know I've had a couple people who are like, man, your place must be really hot, it's all black, and you get a little lesson in thermodynamics. This, oh my god, it's no, it's actually cold to the touch. It's just because it's black doesn't mean that it's gonna absorb all of the heat from the air. That's a light radiant heat thing from sunlight, and black tends to absorb heat more from sun rays and whatnot, so it actually stays relatively cold in here. The only time I have any issues with heat in this space is when I have all of these lights on full blast, which I generally don't have them on. I turn them on for cameras so you can see me. Otherwise, it would just be a big dark space here. This is my collection of camera gear and my Roland R26, and it's my fancy keyboard. I actually got this as a prize, a door prize, for being on the crew at DreamHack Atlanta. It's a red Dragon. It's only got the red LEDs, but it's blues, and I've got that hooked up to the PlayStation right now. Which it's also in Dvorak, mind you. Of course, that's how it's got to work. And I think that's my update for the moment. I've got the DragonCon video that I'm working on. I've got, oh god, so many other things. I've got to make another trip here in the next couple weeks. I got to go up and visit somebody who's pretty awesome, and that might turn into a video. It'll be pretty cool. And I've got some other cool things. I've had a chit chat with Peter Moorbacher while I was at DragonCon, and we'll gonna see what we can do, because I'm a big fan of his art, and I hope you are too, because I really do like his stuff. And I've got, you know, some of the snazzier pieces from the Angelarium stuff, Book of Emanations, but he's got a bunch of other stuff. Like I bumped into him there at DragonCon. I was like, I need to leave because I can't. That he had a really nice print, canvas print, and it was expensive, and I definitely don't have the money to buy that. But drooling on it, I didn't want to ruin the product for somebody else. It was just an amazing piece, and I don't have a lot of space in here anymore. I filled it up with his stuff. I got some more space here though. I got to put some more on there. I'm rambling. I'm gonna get back to work. I just want to give you guys an update. So that's kind of where we're at. Until next time. This keyboard still kicks ass. Look at it, from Dvorak now. Oh, yes, such amazingness. New keyboard's out, the new Freestyle Edge. Check it out. Alright, I'm done yapping.